Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kim DiGiulio alongside Tati Amara.
It is so good to be hanging out with all of you for Live in the D+. This is where we get a chance to dive a little deeper into some of the stories and conversations that you see on Live in the D. You can catch us here every Tuesday at 2:30.
The real conversation.
Real conversations.
Because Tati and I, we really like to dive into things, but unfortunately, we only have an hour to do that.
I know.
On Live in the D. So here's Live in the D+. So earlier this month on the show, we introduced you to Stephen McGee. He's the director and photographer behind the film Resurgo. Now, it is a powerful documentary that explores Detroit's past, present, and future through stunning visuals and deeply personal storytelling.
So Stephen moved to Detroit about 20 years ago and began documenting the city through his lens. Everything from abandoned buildings and changing neighborhoods to everyday life, and even raising his own family here. Now, all of those experiences are woven into this film. Let's take a look.
I'm proud of where I'm from. It taught me, everything. Detroit has been the arsenal of democracy. It's been the center of the whole economy. And it's also been at the bottom. I mean, two of the most dramatic ends of the spectrum.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
God, every time, and I've seen that clip, I feel like 30 times, and every time I just get little chills down my spine.
Breathtaking.
Thank you.
Stephen, it is great to have you back here in studio with us.
It's
Welcome
amazing to be
back.
here. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an honor.
Of course, of course. Well, let's get into it. First, before I have a whole bunch of questions I want to ask you, but since we last spoke to you, you have been a couple of screenings of the film, but also you were at South by Southwest. Talk to us about how was South by Southwest?
Yeah, South by Southwest was an honor. I was speaking at Midwest House and doing this huge portrait series for a group called Summit. So I was able to talk to a lot of people that were in kind of that conversation of my film that is talking about the West Coast and the decentralization of the tech industry. It's a massive concept, but when you start to go person by person, and discussing these larger themes, people just kind of become sponges. And so it's not only an introduction to these huge theses, but it's an introduction into Detroit in a way that people hadn't been considering it. Because I'm like, look, Detroit has a strong population and it's really poised for an incredible growth.
I mean, we're in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, we really are. So Austin was an incredible city. The food was amazing, and the coffees were great. But it was really the people at the Midwest House that were able to spread the word of my film. And somebody came up to me. They're like, "Do you know that you're the most talked about thing at South by Southwest right now?" And,
What?
I give all glory to God, but at the same time, I'm also saying this is something that's reflecting the people of the city of Detroit, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
So I've never been to South by Southwest.
Yeah, it was my first
sounds
time.
Really cool. So when you say the Midwest House, is that what exactly is that?
Yeah, so there's South by Southwest are hundreds, if not thousands, of activated areas of the city. And the Midwest House was an area where they just had programming through the day. So a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, from Chicago, from Indiana, Cincinnati, all had their stage for 15 to 20 minutes. And so I talked about Resurgo.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was amazing, actually. And it was almost like 4 days of just nonstop. I also talked to 250 tech founders from the West Coast, asking them and kind of exploring this thesis with them, saying do you think that San Francisco is rising or in a disinvestment cycle? And that feedback was really actually very inspiring.
Do you feel like people are kind of losing those myths of Detroit being worn out, down and out, and so on? Because I was watching an interview that two people were doing with someone else, and they were talking about Detroit as if it were what existed 15 years ago. Do you feel like those myths are being dispelled slowly?
I think slowly, absolutely. It was, it's the individuals, it's social media, but largely, I mean, the huge part of those visuals that you just watched, the emphasis of those visuals are we have to show the most beautiful parts because we're fighting against 60 years of disinvestment narratives, and I mean, it's really the people of Detroit that we're trying to lift up here, but our city is also very strikingly beautiful.
It really is.
Yeah, it's so true because you do see those shots, and obviously not all of Detroit looks like that, but that's the same with any city. You know, there's the
Absolutely.
pretty parts and the ugly parts. But speaking of Detroit and this film, you've been documenting Detroit for nearly 2 decades now. But you know, that's when you moved here. I think it's 2005.
Yeah.
What point when you started documenting Detroit did you really feel like, you know, I think I've got something here. I think that this is going to turn into this documentary that you're making, Resurgo.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very quick narrative arc, but 2 years at the newspaper, 3 years working for international news organizations, you know, my archive began to become larger than what I could have done on my own. It was the people asking me into those narratives that like equipped me with being able to be in the financial, you know, conversations of our bankruptcy. It equipped me to walk the Stanley Cup down Woodward Avenue. And so when I started looking at it, it wasn't really until the birth of my daughter, which happened basically on the same day Detroit declared bankruptcy, that I was like, wow, this is actually bringing me into a narrative that I could never have planned on my own. So at that point, I just had to kind of be attentive and patient because I still had another 11 years of documenting ahead of me. So, you know, it just was piece by piece. And, I think when something's inside your heart, like this city, and something's as big as this project is in front of me, you know, I'm living in faith every single day that I'm supposed to be doing something larger than myself. And, you know, I was out in Farmington showing this film, and somebody in front of 200 people stood up and he said, Resurgo changed the way I view who I fear, realizing I've been wrong my whole life. I mean, that's huge.
That's poignant.
You know, and I think if we can do that, you know, in this area, then we can do that in this region, and we can do that in this country. And that's where real change happens.
That's so important. Now, did you set out wanting to do a documentary, knowing that you would be documenting it for 20 years?
Yeah.
Or is it kind of like a purpose that slowly revealed itself to you?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of like watching my child walk, and now she's running, and now she just turned 13, right? Like you have this first step. I moved to the city. I get into this in my film, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But, you know, I traveled the world, and what I had seen around the world prepared me for Detroit, realizing the strength of the people was not reflected in the abandoned buildings. And so naturally separating that, but then also just open ear, open mic, just like you guys have, right? Like you're hearing these stories, you're like, oh, these things are kind of connecting together in a larger narrative. Resurgo is tackling a massive undertaking, and I'm whittling it every time I can in between these different screenings. I just showed Wayne State University alternative spring break crew, and it was about 55 students, and you know, some of them were like, this is beautiful, I see myself reflected in it, and some people were like, you aren't attacking capitalism enough, you know. And so these kinds of ideas, I'm like, well, this was the youngest audience I'd had, 18 to 20-year-olds. But I'm like, also, I want to hear what they care about, because they're the ones that are going to be pushing this film forward 20 years from now.
Right.
And then they're the future of Detroit as
Absolutely.
well, or you know, not just Detroit, but our nation.
The whole world. I mean, because I feel like everything is compressed, right? Through globalization, through what social media and AI has been able to do. So
absolutely.
the world is really this big now.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, the discourse is really important, right? And when do they have an opportunity to kind of explore these themes in the way that you're presenting them?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of themes, the film is also filled with incredible imagery that you captured yourself, which is, I mean, we only dream of some of these kind of shots.
Yes.
So were there moments when filming that you stopped and you had to think, where you're overwhelmed and you're thinking like history is happening right in front of me right now?
Yeah, I'm noticing just being able to prepare for larger events. I mean, Michigan Central Station opening was an event that I knew was the pinnacle of my entire 20 years. Ended up by realizing that this building was a reflection of my own life and feeling abandoned and empty and isolated, almost being torn down, getting married with kids, having some hope in life, and then of course coming an opening June 6th of 2024. So even just that event, I was preparing. I had 12 cameras on the building. I had a photograph happening from on top of the Penobscot building, looking all the way into Corktown. I had images, of the stage when Jack White was on there. So I was really covering the event from a massive side. There are those types of moments, but then there's also smaller moments where I'm realizing larger themes, and I'm like, just lifting up Marsha music and bringing that voice to the crowd and talking about her in Austin. Those to me are the historical moments. And I'm like, when Jessica Care Moore is a household name, when Bill Harris is a household name, to me, we're writing history history that people are going to reference 50 years from now.
That is so cool. I just think like back, I used to be obsessed with the train station, like
Yeah.
even before when it was ruins, and I would take pictures of it, but little did I know what it was going to be.
Right.
And so it's just so cool, like how you literally bought a house right across the street from it. His story is incredible, but it really is not just Detroit's story, the film. It's the story of your family as well. You were raising your kids in Corktown while documenting all of this. How did that shape the way you approach this storytelling? I mean, I love when you just said my daughter was born basically the day that Detroit declared bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm a new parent, so I
Yeah.
can't really imagine being like, okay, we're gonna raise this baby in this city that just declared bankruptcy,
Yeah.
but you did it, and that's so cool.
I mean, having a child shows you how beautiful life is. And you're not thinking about the oncoming bankruptcy or the headlines. And I just realized that people have been doing this in the city for decades, and I'm like, if they're raising families here and it looks that beautiful, we're about to do the same. Shout out to my wife who had 3 home births at the Garden Court.
Super,
she's a
super
trooper.
shout out to your wife. 1, 2, 3
Incredible.
times. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, she had 3, and on the 7th floor of the building that they filmed Martin in, that,
wow.
And so I was like,
On Jefferson.
On Jefferson, yeah. And, I mean, the birth records lady was like, I think you have this wrong. And I'm like, nope, they were home births. And, it was fun. I mean, each time.
It was fun for some of us.
It was, she's the first woman to do a backflip on a bike. And so she's already, a BA. And, and, she travels the world pushing women's sports forward. So I feel like that just, this film wouldn't be possible with every single part of it, right? Like the people, my wife saying yes to moving to Detroit to follow and fall in love, and me fall in love with her, and just kind of accept, this idea of this. In 2010, when we first started dating in Detroit, it didn't seem like any of this was on the horizon. And this film could have gone any number of ways. And that's kind of, we were discussing about other cities. Memphis didn't go through bankruptcy, and they haven't seen the same revitalization efforts in terms of the financial sectors like that Detroit has. And Baltimore and Memphis have both reached out because of this project saying, how do we do that here? And so I'm kind of noticing just people wanting to own their own narratives, people wanting to lift up their residents that have, held their city up, but having this like massive narrative kind of combating that effort. And so I think this project really is just becoming something that it's even bigger than just this film.
Well, it's incredible that you're able to serve as kind of like an example to cities like Memphis and Baltimore that have so many similarities to Detroit, but and have this narrative, but there are all these other sub stories that never get told, never get appreciated. People who have been there through thick and thin, and want people to know that the city is still here.
Yeah.
Just experiencing some difficulties through the process.
And I love the family aspect of the documentary, because I know you
Yeah.
struggle with that. Like, as a journalist, you never want to make the story about yourself, but I feel like it gives you credibility, because it's like, how can you tell the story about Detroit if you were living outside of Detroit?
Somewhere else.
Yeah,
Right.
that wouldn't make
Absolutely.
sense.
I mean, also a big part of my film, is my family, and just kind of navigating what my children are asking me, or sometimes what I feel like the audience asks also. They're like, are you still trying to make this movie? I'm like, yes, I'm still trying to make this movie.
I'm not trying to make this
yeah.
movie. I'm making this movie currently.
I know. But I mean, my daughter, I would snuggle her to sleep every night, and I would just have the phone, because we'd have these beautiful little conversations. And so all the audio in there is just this like really intimate time between me and her. And she's like, you're broadcasting it to the world. I was like, I know, we're living for a bigger thing. But, these ideas, though, that we are all connected by these very simple questions, and it's like, if we can ask them together, then maybe that helps.
I love in the beginning of the film when one of your kids is like, you bought the house for just $1?
Yeah.
$1, yeah.
$1.
Yeah, $1.
A house in Corktown. I mean, it needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
But
And I think that's kind of a catch. Like, it's really easy in Detroit to have these kind of punchy headlines, like a film about a $1 house, but I'm not like, I feel like that sensationalism is
Yeah.
what I'm trying. It was really hard to navigate, and became easy when I realized that the $1 house was actually this conduit, this ability to talk to people on the West Coast who obviously cannot fathom a home for under $200,000, if not even $500,000. And so I bring it up to their attention by saying, you know, I bought a $1 house because of what narratives were out there. What narratives do we miss along the way? You know, the narrative of Detroit devalued a home to the price of almost worthless. And so in my mind, this film brings up the narratives that were missed along the way. And you know, we're just getting started.
Okay.
Speaking of which, we are just getting started.
We are just getting started. We do need to take a quick break.
That's right. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Live in the D+, everyone. It's good to continue hanging out with you.
That's right. And we want to continue our conversation with Stephen McGee. He's the director and photographer behind the film Resurgo. All right. So we've been having some great conversation about the film. But I wanted to ask you, after somebody watches this film, what do you hope they walk away with, a feeling of Detroit? Because I know you're showing it to so many different types of people. Some people who are watching it, they already love Detroit, but some people are unsure. So is it a different feeling for a different type of person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like after every film so far, the test screenings, we've had up to 3-hour question and answers. And so it does really bring out a lot of feelings. Grown men are crying. You know, people are very thankful. Some people are wondering, why don't I include maybe some people who have invested a lot of money in the city, you know, as a part of thing. I feel like what I noticed through all of the question and answer is that people come in with something, and they in 2 hours we have this shared experience. And they feel more thankful to live in Detroit. They feel more thankful to know Detroiters, and that kind of feeling is, I guess, what, you know, how I felt filming. I want people to walk away with this idea of maybe the next person I talk to is a very important person. I'm just going to give them everything I have.
Wow.
So
Is that something?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a great answer.
I think it's a combination of two things, as you say, that it makes me think of, right? So it's going to inspire people to want to be more present and actually see the person that they're talking to.
Yeah.
But it seems like this movie is also giving a chance for people who really need to be seen to have the opportunity to finally be seen. And every human being has that desire, in my opinion.
100%. I mean, I'm, you know, addressing that I'm a white Californian moving into the blackest city in America, saying when I was invited into these narratives, they were talking to me as an outsider. And the way that people were talking to me and telling me stories and the enthusiasm and love that they shared me, I felt a responsibility to that, you know, and that responsibility compounded over 20 years. And so I'm saying when Marsha Music talks to me about her father's house and record shop in Black Bottom, I want to be able to give my 100% Hollywood attention, my 100% documentarian attention to lift this and make this the most compelling film. Not only just to have Detroiters be like, this is something that represents us correctly, but to have people on the outside also have a view of just the togetherness that we have as a country, I think.
I saw on your website, it was a quote from somebody that says, as a black man from Detroit, you've done us proud.
Yeah, I've gotten that twice. And so I feel, you know, I'm just...
That says a lot. Detroiters just don't hand out compliments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially like that.
Right.
I feel like, you know, and that's just, I mean, it's, yeah, I'd like to just have this like clear glass right here, right now when he says that, because to me, he's seeing himself represented by strong black men in the film, which exist in our everyday society, but are often in many places, not just black men, but people in general are marginalized by the lens that we approach them with. And so, you know, when I would get assignments from different news media organizations, it would always be a lens of struggle. And I'm like, but these people are succeeding, they have great homes, you know, and I think just that kind of breaking down, having worked for everyone, having, you know, 3 kids, I mean, this is my family's mission, like, is to tell this story and be a part of this community.
Yeah, because we were talking about that off camera a bit, like, obviously, I can tell by the work that you've created and by the way that you talk about it, this was part of your purpose.
Yeah.
But it also has to be your family's purpose. You need buy-in from the whole family to say, we're going to live in Corktown, across the street from Michigan Central, watch it be rebuilt, have my kids here. Oh, by the way, my wife is here too. We're going to have home births on Jefferson, you know, and we're going to do all of these things. You guys had to have seen
the vision?
possibilities.
I would love to say,
together.
I would like to give us that award of pre-visioning, but
Right.
I mean, it really is. I mean, living in faith, you just have a day. You have what's in front of you right now, and there's a lot of moments that I felt empty and not even sure. Even right before one screening, I had just, you get really low sometimes. And you're like, is this actually mean anything? Is my effort even going to be amounted to? It's not the stages I'm looking to win awards or anything like that. I think it's just, at the end of the day, we all want something to work for and work towards. And if I've done this right, I think it'll be successful. If I'm sitting on top of this building, it's not because I'm trying to get a better view. It's because I'm trying to show them at the highest level I can. Lifting up Detroit's voices literally led me to the top of the world. And, there's some things that we're supposed to see, that we're supposed to live, and I've had a camera in front of me. And this is a lot. It's a lot. It's a big film.
By the way, I love this shot right here. This was the day of the concert.
Yeah.
And that I was reporting that day, that rainbow. We woke up and it was the most amazing rainbow over Michigan Central Station. It was like it knew that its day was
Those are one
that
of those
day.
little divine winks that you
Literally.
get. Yeah.
It was. I mean, that was a kind of a fun story too, because I had prepared all those 12 cameras, and so many moments I was not really sleeping that night, and I accidentally left the dog outside. Oh no! And there was a lot of people, and my dog was barking at 5 a.m. and I'm like, gosh, I don't want to wake up the kids. And I went outside, and there was a rainbow over the train station, and it's like, it's just those things that, sometimes we have cameras, sometimes we don't, but they're special either way.
Yeah. Gosh. Wow.
So would you say then that, faith fueled the purpose?
Absolutely. I mean, I always hope that the love of God somehow reflects through the camera towards the people. I feel like, I hope I'm just this transparent being that's like, here's exactly how I feel we're all loved. And if I can do that through a camera and in a short amount of time, then I think the result will be a 2-hour film that hopefully goes around the world. But, this is to me just step 1 of 3. I feel like I have 2 more that I need to do to fulfill the story.
All right.
What are the 2 more?
In this film, you get to know me very well, and you get to hear me a lot. In the next film, I don't think I need to say much. I really appreciated how NPR kind of taught me just that audible storytelling, where the journalist says a little thing and then you get to the bigger thing and then you kind of jump in and out of that. So I'm going to work my way out of my own job, hopefully in the next 2 ones.
Okay, so that's step 2.
Yeah.
And then?
Step 3, if we have flying cars, I might need to retire, but I feel like, I think that our nation has to go through a lot of things. I think the West Coast is on the brink of this disinvestment cycle that I saw when I was in the Historical Society's archives, when I was researching for this film, the different billionaires and banks I've worked for across this country. I'm looking at this tech narrative. Detroit's kind of absorbing some of the tech, as well as Albuquerque and Idaho Falls and Santa Fe and Austin, just what I saw in South by Southwest. But when you look at Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA, Hollywood, each one of those downtown cores are hollowing out. Their core industries are leaving. Their home prices are becoming astronomical for most people. And so the decentralization, depopulation, and disinvestment cycles that hit the Rust Belt, when you look at Buffalo down to Syracuse, over to Pittsburgh, down to Cleveland, I feel like history is on the brink of repeating itself, but it's going to go a lot faster on the West Coast. And I know I'm bringing up a lot of stuff right now, but I think that what I've seen in Detroit, I'm like, you got to have the conversations, because you can't fight for your state if you don't know your neighbor. Yeah. And what I've noticed in Detroit is a network of neighborhoods. Jefferson Chalmers, that people know each other on the block. It's these block clubs that have held the city up during the large disinvestments that I'm like, respectfully, there's billionaires stepping over homeless to save the rainforest. And I'm not saying saving the rainforest is bad, but on the West Coast, there's some issues that they aren't dealing with. And in Detroit, I'm just ready to talk to the most difficult situation possible, because of how I've seen people address difficult situations here.
Right. And I know I could talk for another hour, but
Sorry,
we only have
that was
a
a
few
lot.
minutes left. You've got screenings coming up. You can't just see this at your home right now. You are doing private screenings. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, so the film is being released in a way where we're doing test screenings, and I'm also trying to bring the voices of Detroit to the largest stages at the same time. So I'm entering it into the largest festivals in the nation. Whether or not they get accepted, it does not not mean is the film good or not, but
Right.
I'm waiting back to hear back from Tribeca and Cannes in France, and I'll enter into TIFF and all these festivals that really mean a lot to a lot of people and myself.
So how do
So
people
right
see it?
now,
Yeah.
April 10th at Senate Theater on Michigan Avenue
Okay.
is the next screening. And we're also going to show it at the up in Traverse City at the film festival up there on May 3rd. And you can go to thedetroitfilm.com to look for more screening listings.
That's cool.
A little drive up north, little
Something.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds fun.
Yeah, the Senate Theater is also awesome as
Yeah,
well.
it's 700
Absolutely.
seats, so it's
Yeah.
going to be a big one.
It's going to be good.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's
Yes.
there's so many layers to it. Like Kim said, we could go on for another hour. We really could.
Yes,
you.
and thanks for representing our city so well.
Honestly, yeah.
Cali boy
Hey.
coming on. Thank
true.
you.
It's
You're
true.
a Detroiter. Let's be honest.
20 years.
Yeah.
Documentary. It's official. But thank you all
Exactly.
so much for joining us for Live in the D+. We'll see you tomorrow morning on Live in the D at 11 a.m.